Hello and welcome to the Nexus. This is our Demon Souls in Focus podcast. Uh, we are following up from our Eternal podcast from a couple of weeks ago, and today we are finally set to discuss and talk about Demon Souls. Obviously, it's been around for a while. The game has been here for a little
Yeah.
around a year almost, I guess. October, wasn't it, last year?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
but
been close.
yes,
Yeah, it's
uh, now
about
that
a
I've
month.
finally had my tryst with Demon Souls and I'm done with one playthrough and I'm with one and a half playthroughs, in fact, uh,
Yeah.
we are now ready to discuss the game itself. A lot of things about the game. We also have a tier list ahead of us with boss rankings, and we're
Yeah.
going to probably decide what we want to do in the boss rankings itself. But today, obviously, I'm
Yeah.
joined. I'm joined by our local Soulsborne veteran, aka Kedar, and he is the one who has very kindly. So, if you guys have seen the Returnal podcast, for a little context, I knocked off Returnal from my list before Kedar could. So I'm the resident Returnal
Yeah.
god over here, and Kedar, having done like n number of Soulspawn games, n number of playthroughs, is the resident
Yeah.
Soulspawn god over here. Uh,
Yeah.
you can
With
follow. You
over
can
5,000 hours
you can
in
follow
all
Kedar. You can
across
follow.
all of from
You can follow Kedar on amfromsoftwareguy.org. Just kidding, guys.
.org.
Okay,
I'm
Kedar.
surprised that's like a non-organized, non-government or
Dot. All right.
crowdfunded or
This
something.
is hilarious. All right, let's start. So today we're going to talk everything Demon Souls. Kedar. Uh,
Everything Demon Souls. So
yes.
let's get in from the basics. Let's look at it
Yep.
from two points of view. One, as a newcomer, I would like to hear that first because we've not really sat down and spoken about this ever since we actually played the game.
Yep.
Because I played through and I watched you play through, which is equally exciting because much like a lot of other games, I feel like the Souls games are very watchable.
Yep.
it
Absolutely.
is it is so like you can feel that frustration or that second-hand happiness when someone conquers something or someone dies to something.
Yep.
And it is so mesmerizing because you're looking at it with those rose-tinted glasses while also sort of cathartically experiencing it from like sort of vicariously experiencing it. And I find that very few games can pull that off. So I
Yep.
want to know what you thought as a newcomer.
Okay. So let me spend about 2 minutes on this particular segment where I talk about my. This is actually my
Yeah.
first ever tryst with a Soulsborne game. So here's the thing. This is essentially not the first Soulsborne game I've ever played. I have
Okay.
tried Dark Souls on PC, but that was a miserable experience because keyboard
Oh,
mouse is just a bad experience. I
yeah.
tried the same thing with Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 3, but again, same concept doesn't
Yeah.
really work that well. Uh,
True.
and then when I finally got my hands on the PS5, I bought a whole bunch of games, and Demon Souls had to be on the list because, first of all, the visuals has captivated me, and I read about, and obviously I heard from you, that Demon Souls
Yeah.
is the first entrant in the whole Souls series, if you like, right?
Yep.
Souls-like series.
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, cool. You know what? If there's ever a time to start, it's now.
It's
And with
now.
that knowledge, I jumped right into it. Obviously, the mechanics of the game threw me off guard because, as someone who's been playing video games for almost, well, 24 years now, uh, it is a very diluted and a very basic and a very straightforward uh, way of playing a video game because
Yep.
it doesn't really feed you a lot of information. It's
Mm.
almost intuitive in a very diluted sense. And I'm not saying
Yeah.
that like it's a bad thing. It's actually
Hmm.
it's a very different take on games because I think nowadays we're spoiled with like tutorials and pop-up instructions and guides and everything pretty much available at our disposal at a moment's notice. If you want to look something up, go to the menu, look at this, and that's it. There you go. But
Yeah.
Demon Souls, and I think by extension, and I do experience the other games in the Souls-like franchise, uh, is a game that lets you feed off of your own intuition, and I
Yeah.
love that. All right. First impressions of the game, love love it to death. I dare say that I think it is the first game that I completed on the PS5. Yeah, it is. It is.
Yes.
So the
Hmm.
PS5. I mean, I've inaugurated my PS5 with Demon Souls. I finished Demon Souls the first as the first game on the PS5.
Hmm.
It took me a little over 35 to 40 hours for the first playthrough, I believe.
Okay.
which is pretty good in my opinion.
That's a fair bit of
That's a
time. Yeah,
fair
that's
bit of
good.
time, but it's pretty good for someone who has never played a Souls like ever before
Yeah.
and is not used to a lot of the mechanics. So fun fact,
Hmm.
I played like 99% of the game with a fat roll on my first playthrough.
Oh yeah,
And
I
then I
remember
was
that.
like, and I reached the last boss, which was King Alant, and then I realized, oh wait, you know what? This boss is impossible with a fat roll. And then obviously
Yeah.
you came in and you told me, you know what? Just knock the gauntlets off, and you'll ace this guy. And
Yeah.
that's essentially what happened. It's the same build, but I
With
just knocked the gauntlets off and I did a normal
yeah,
build
and chip damage, right? It's
and
so
chip
underrated.
damage. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So first impressions, the game's absolutely sensational. I love it to death. I
Mm.
am going to platinum it. Of course, I got derailed a bit on my platinum adventure because, well, Returnal
Oh
happened,
yeah,
and then a lot of
yeah.
other things
There's
happened in the
just a
middle as
lot
well.
else to play. Yeah.
But I am definitely going to go back and play that and finish the platinum on that someday. First
Yep.
impressions, love it to death. If you have to ask me my the biggest reasons why I love it, one of course is the visual fidelity of it. It's absolutely mesmerizing to look at, and I've seen
Yeah.
videos of comparisons of it versus like the remake versus like you have those side-scrolling scrollers which essentially show you how the game used to look in the classic version and now the remade version. It's just it's
Yeah.
it's it's a testament to how Bluepoint has managed to retain
Oh
the
yeah.
essence of the game to, I would say, near perfection
Yeah.
and managed to touch it up to such incredible visual fidelity.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's
I
my
feel like
first take. Yeah.
every intricate detail that has gone into like redesigning enemies and bosses and areas and like just they've given it its own spin,
Yep.
but it just has that 2009 charm to it,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it
Everything
pulls off.
everything just feels. I mean, even though I haven't played the 2009 version, I
Yeah.
know that someone who has played the 2009 version will say that okay, you know what, this is as true to the original as it could be.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. I agree. Because even though I haven't beaten the 2009 Demon Souls yet, I'm still going to do that. It is so on point.
Yep.
It is the quintessential version to play right now. But for those who don't have a PS5 and still have a PS3, I would still say, yeah, you're not really missing out, but you're kind of missing out.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It
that's first impressions. Sorry.
That's
Go on.
good. Very positive first impressions from a newcomer.
Oh
Most
yeah.
people get very intimidated by the genre itself, considering how, it's considered to be a behemoth task to just sort of,
I
you
will
know,
admit that the game did have its frustrating moments. There were instances where I felt like, you know what, fuck this game. I could play something else instead.
yeah,
But I think that's one aspect of the game which I really love, which is the sense of satisfaction that comes when you conquer something that's really hindering your progress to a large extent.
yeah,
And I think that's what keeps you going in something like this.
precisely. It's just that itch, it's what I had with Returnal.
Yeah.
You're so close to beating a boss and you're just like you can't sleep. You lose your sleep over it and you're like, wait, no, it's just 11:59. I can play till 1 a.m. I can play 1 minute, but that 1 minute turns into an hour, so you end up playing till 1 a.m.
Yeah, that
And then
sounds
you've just
familiar.
like beaten a boss and then the next entire part of the level.
Yep. Yep.
And it's one of those games which I always approach like if I can't do it tonight, I will approach it in the morning and I'll get it first try.
Yep. Yeah.
It's
It's
just,
that it's
I don't
that
know how it
fresh.
works, but it just
Incidentally,
works.
that worked with me with God of War as well. Just going off on a tangent here.
Yeah.
There used to be instances where I used to play the Valkyrie fights, and I used to
Yeah.
be like, you know what,
Yeah.
I'm not going to beat this thing tonight. Fuck it. Start again next
Mm,
morning, 8 o'clock. Fresh mind, cup of coffee, two
yeah.
tries in, it's done. I think
Done.
it's very similar. I think in that aspect.
Yeah, it is. It is. I feel like, and also like from when I was a newcomer, right? Like I can very, very obviously state this without it being disputed. It does challenge you, but it gives you the right amount of reward to keep you from being super OP.
Yep.
But if you know how to use the abilities that you have at hand, there is a very good chance that you can be super OP.
Yep, absolutely. Which I kind of figured by I think by like 70% of the game I started realizing that there are ways in which I can quote unquote break the game. I wouldn't say break the game.
Yeah.
That's a very
Yeah.
unfair way to say it. But
Mm.
there are ways in which you can kill the game. I mean, you can roll past the game pretty smoothly after you
Yeah.
understand how the mechanics work, after you understand what build you want to go for, and
Yeah.
you
I
understand the
think break
basic
is fine.
mechanics. Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is in a way it's breaking the game, right? It's not
Yeah.
intended breaking. It's not you breaking the game by intent, but you are essentially finding the exploits that the game has probably provided to you
Yeah.
that wants you to exploit.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just there is so much at your disposal, and so it feels like you're breaking the game.
Yep.
Though, yes, like you said, like it's not essentially breaking the game. You're just using what the game's giving you. That's because the game gives you no direction, right? Like, yes, going in first, second time, I knew magic is broken.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yep.
And magic is super broken. You can one shot man eaters in like with two firestorms if you have it at the right time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
it is maniacal,
Yeah.
but it is just that, right? Like if you start with the sorcerer class, or if you start with that one class which is like half sorcerer and half something else, I forget.
Royal, isn't
Uh,
it Royal?
you have the right equipment for it's royalty,
Royalty.
royalty.
Yeah. Yeah.
My bad. Yeah, it's royalty. Yeah, it's you start with the right equipment and
Correct.
you start with the right catalyst and you start with the right spells, and then you just go off the beaten path a little bit and you unlock this OP shit. And that's possible with a melee build. That's
Yeah. Yeah.
possible if you find a specific soul that you give to a specific blacksmith and you get
Hmm.
boss weapons.
Hmm.
The game doesn't give you much direction, and I feel like that is something that holds a lot of charm in itself,
Hmm.
because it literally opens up infinite avenues of like infinite playthroughs
Yep.
essentially.
Yep. Yep. So this happened
Like
with
this.
me, right, on the
Yeah.
infinite playthroughs bit, where after I beat the game once, I got like super enthusiastic. I'm like, fuck, I'm gonna beat the game with like this build and that build and this build and that build. And
Yeah.
I think I have four simultaneous characters right now. After the character that I won, beat the game with, one's like the blue blood sword build, one is like the pure magic build, one's like X build, one is like Y build, and I'm like, oh
Yeah.
yes, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna beat this game with like infinite number of builds essentially. And yeah,
And they're
it
all
is.
equally rewarding.
They're all equally rewarding. They're all like, they're all intriguing. They're all challenging. And the fun part now is, I think now, I mean, the game always was fun, but now you don't feel that bad for dying. In essence, because you're like, you've already
Yeah.
beaten the game. You know what everything's. You know everything about the game. You know the entire layout of the game essentially. You
Yeah.
have the blueprint in front of you. All you need now
Yes.
is to optimize your build as per the way you want to beat the game and just go with it. That's just what's.
Yeah, it's a lot less daunting when you get
It's
stabbed
very.
in the back by those
Yeah,
assassins.
yeah. And you get burnt to a crisp by like a number of dragons, but yeah. Wait,
The yeah, those two
the
dragons,
two dragons
scumbag dragons, no one
in
likes.
in King's Landing, I believe it's called. No, just kidding, not
In-
King's Landing. You know what I'm talking
uh,
about.
yeah,
All right.
that yeah, that sums it up. I feel for just like a general sense of how the game opens up for a newcomer.
Yep.
But one thing I feel like a lot of people have trouble with getting used to the game are the controls in the combat. Because
Hmm.
traversal is pretty straightforward. You'll see an open doorway, you'll see a fog gate, and you'll probably go through it. You'll die a couple of times. You'll feel bad. You'll want to break your controller, put down the game, and get back tomorrow. But it is what I feel about the combat is it is so simple,
Yep.
but simple doesn't necessarily mean easy,
Easy. Yeah, that's the gist of it.
right?
That's the gist of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It.
And considering how the game gives you, like it drip feeds you combat, right? Like whether or not you play the tutorial, it drip feeds you every single move that you can or cannot execute, and then it throws you straight into the challenge, into a challenge with the Vanguard, which later became a classic Souls thing. They'll just throw one big guy at you and like, okay, see if you can beat him. If you can beat him, you're good. You can play. That is essentially a pattern.
Yeah. 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 So here's the thing, right? I mean, I once I got the hang of the lock-on system,
Yeah.
combat became pretty straightforward. So till then it was kind of wonky, and it took me.
Yeah.
I think I like did not use lock-on for like a first hour or so into the game, and I was like, you
I
know what?
remember.
It for me it felt like the lock-on was kind of hindering at first,
Mm-hmm.
but it's later on that I realized that lock-on is absolutely like an essential part of Soulspawn games.
Oh yeah, it is. It
And then
absolutely is.
yeah, and then that's when I sort of like got used to it. I had to almost relearn the fact that I need to do a lock-on system to play the game the way it's meant to be played essentially.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it's fun.
And
It's
that
it's pretty
is
good.
Yeah, that is like one of those tipping points for a lot of players, right? Like I
Yep.
have seen my cousin play all like through Bloodborne without using the lock on, and I shit you not, it irritates me.
That that
It is so
sounds that sounds
frustrating.
impossible, first of all, and I don't know how that's even possible. But
Oh yeah.
but that's crazy. Why would you
Yeah,
want to
he
go through
beat the
that pain?
game. It's so, but that's the thing, right? Like and if never in my life would I have thought that a melee game would require lock on, because
Yeah.
before I played Dark Souls back in 2015 or 2014, I never thought melee. The only melee games I knew were Skyrim and Devil May Cry and God of
Oh,
War. Like
yes, yes.
I had like those were the standards I had set for melee combat. Like I did
Yeah.
not know it could get so detailed and meticulous, and you had to like plan every single move before you executed it.
Yeah.
And I feel like that, like someone like me who is very compulsive about how games work and games
Uh-huh.
function and how your character moves, you know, pixel perfect animations and pixel perfect combat is very satisfying to me. And I feel like Demon Souls got that right a decade ago,
Yep.
which most
Which they
games,
just
like
built
even
on in this iteration, essentially.
exactly. And it's just like that has sort of set the bar for, like, yeah, people say Dark Souls set the bar for a lot of games. I would argue it was Demon Souls because obviously it came first, but
Yep.
it is the
Yep.
less spoken of,
Yeah.
you know.
It's the old. It's like the, that Ninja Turtle meme. It's like the master of all the demons, so of all
Yeah.
the ninjas, essentially.
Yep. That
Yeah.
that sums it up.
It's the grandpa
Oh,
of the Souls like franchise.
yeah. So what did you so big thing, okay? Like this is a point of contention across, gamer folk so to speak. What did you think of the difficulty? Because I feel like people always regard these games as, oh, it's too hard, it's painful, I can't
I
do
I
it.
would say it wasn't. So now that I'm reminiscing on the game itself, right? Because when I was
Yeah.
playing it, it felt hard. It's not your conventional.
Mm.
Uh, so even if you play any game, I'm just going to go off on a tangent and say, let's say Assassin's Creed Valhalla, for example, right?
All right.
Even if you play Assassin's Creed Valhalla on like a tier two difficulty, which is like one rung below the highest difficulty level,
Okay.
you will still be able to beat it with relative ease, in my opinion, and probably even the hardest difficulty level. So I would say this is like hard. The difficulty is quite extensive.
Yeah.
The learning curve is steep.
Yeah.
It's not exactly something that is very learning curve friendly. It's not very newcomer friendly, I would say. I mean, now
Yeah.
that I've
No, it
played
is.
Demon Souls, for example, I will probably learn the mechanics of Dark Souls faster. I'll probably learn Sekiro's mechanics better. I mean, I
Hmm.
wouldn't say to inch perfection, but I will go in with the knowledge that there's going to be a steep learning curve.
Yeah, you'll have some familiarity with the general
Exactly.
formula.
Exactly. And I'll have a basic sense of, okay, you know what to expect. Not exactly what to expect,
Mm.
but I know how hard it can get, essentially.
Yeah.
I think the game is challenging, but only to a certain degree. And when I say only to a
Mm.
certain degree, I think a lot of it is down to the class character type you play with.
Yeah.
A lot of it is down to, mm, how do I say this? How do you utilize your resources as well? So I think the Souls leveling system is something that I was not very good at in the first impression, in the first run through,
Uh, yeah.
and that kind of fucked me over a little bit in the start. And when I got the hang of it, when I understood, okay, this is what I need to use my resources for, because obviously your
Yeah.
your gear is tied into your soul level,
Level.
essentially,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
So there
Yep.
used to be instances where I used to find like certain gear, and I used to be like, oh wait, you know what, this is a cool item, I could try this out.
Yeah.
And then I realized, oh fuck, I don't have X, I don't have dexterity, or I don't have strength, or I don't have this. And that's when I kind of feel like, oh, you know what, this isn't as easy as I thought it would be. It's not as simple as, you find loot, you pick it up, you use it. Because
Yeah.
that's what games have spoiled us with as of today, I feel, to a large
Yeah.
extent.
Yeah. I
Right?
agree.
Like you
I
just
agree.
pick up loot and you use it. That's it. It's as simple as that. Very rarely is
Hmm.
it tied to like a soul level or a level that you need to
Yeah.
use, that you need to have your character on before you can actually optimize it. And that's the thing, that's the fun thing that I like about the game. It doesn't lock you out of using the weapon itself.
Yeah. It
But
doesn't.
it's a handicap. It's not you using the weapon to its fullest potential. And I love that
Yep.
mechanic, by the way. What else I didn't like, no, but what else did I find challenging along the way was, I'm going to talk about bosses in the tier list when we get to the bosses, but
Oh yeah. Definitely. Yeah.
uh, The other thing that I found challenging was there were some instances where I felt like I needed more information because, like I said, we've been spoiled with so much information in games
Yeah.
telling you what to do at what instance
Mm.
that you don't really, it's almost a brain dead way of playing sometimes, you know, where
I
you're
agree.
like, oh, you know what, there's a challenge in front of me, but you don't know what to do. And then suddenly you have a notification which tells you what to do.
Mm.
But with Demon Souls, it's not like that. You find a weapon, you find an armorer who's like, you know what, I could exchange boss weapons for. I mean, I could exchange boss souls and give you a boss weapon. But it
Mm-hmm.
doesn't tell you that, you know, using this will essentially lose you the soul forever.
Mm.
Right? You don't know that you should not consume boss souls.
Yep.
Right? Which I did. I was like, oh, hey, boss soul, I'm going to swallow you up, my friend. I beat you, now I'm going to swallow your soul. And then I was like, oh,
Yeah.
well, crap, I needed that thing. I should not have
You
done that.
needed that.
I should not have done that. That was not a good idea, not a bright idea.
Yeah.
So, that's the funny part because I think that's when I sort of told you, hey, you know what? Why don't you watch my stream? And I
Yeah.
was like,
It's funny.
those souls are important. I just consumed them because I was like hungry. I wanted a snack, and I'd beaten those bosses. So what the fuck?
Yeah. Yeah.
But
It's funny you say that because uh, so, and this was my experience with Dark Souls the first time as well, right? Like you will always, no matter how far into the knowing From Software's formula or games you are, your first playthrough will most likely be abandoned, regardless of which game it is. If it's a new game, you're going to abandon your first playthrough within like a few hours of playing it, because I feel like it that is your tutorial. Getting used to, or at least this was my experience, was like those first 3 hours of Dark Souls, right, were a learning experience for me.
yep.
Beat the tutorial boss. Okay, I figured that out. What's next? How do I equip shit? How do I level up? What stats matter for what weapon? Oh no, this is a great sword. I have invested in dexterity. What have I done? Then everything is so expensive and you can't use the weapon you want to use. So you're
Oh
like,
man.
hold the fucking phone. Let me delete this save, create a new save, and then stack up on stats the right way.
Yep.
And then you realize that you've cracked the formula. There is this one point in every Soulsborne Akiro game where you'll have an aha moment, and and
Yeah. Oh
everyone and
yes.
everyone will have it at a different point of
At a
time. Okay,
different
like,
interval in the game. Yep.
yeah, it'll be either when you find a merchant that gives you something important that you didn't know was important but now you figure out is important, or it'll be when you find like a hidden weapon which, when you look at the stats, it's going to be like, holy shit, this was right here all along. And then you'll start a new playthrough just to like
Yeah.
build
Just
on
to
that
have
aha
that build
moment.
on that weapon essentially.
Yeah, it is that those tiny little bursts of sort of
It's those
satisfaction, right? That,
nuggets of information that may give you these like
yeah.
micro
and it's
euphoric moments.
and it's also and it's also very encouraging because you know that you found it all yourself. There was no map marker, there was no compass, there was
Nothing.
no
It's
X-ray
just it's
vision,
just
there was
it's
no
just the
wind
pure
guiding you.
it's just the pure joy of discovery essentially, which is what
Yeah,
I really love about the game because again that's something that we have been spoiled with. Like we have literally been handheld in video games in the modern
for
contemporary
way too
era
long.
where we've been told, hey, you know what, I'm going to take you from this game is going to take you from point A to point B, and at point B you're going to
Mm.
get this. But
Yep.
what Demon Souls does is it says, hey, this is point A. Do whatever the fuck you want. There's something over there, there's something over there, there's something over there. Figure it out. And there's a
Yep.
beauty to that, which I think is, in my experience, it's unparalleled beauty. I haven't
It is.
experienced that in a long time personally. And in fact, I fail to recollect which is the last time. I think Skyrim, incidentally, was the last game that did that to me.
Last time.
Where
Mm.
I'm like, you're just thrown into an open world after beating the first sequence and you're told,
Yeah,
hey, do whatever the fuck you want in this game. It's yours. It's your playground. You
pretty
can chase
much.
a bunny.
Yeah.
You can fight a Daedric god at like level 1. Do whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's the last time I had an experience which was so like uh, unshackling, I would say.
Yeah. I think that's the perfect word.
Yep.
Unshackling sounds good. Hmm. It's That really works because I remember, and like slight tangent here, I remember, like you said Skyrim, and it reminded me of someone's video I watched on YouTube. It was most people, right? Once you're done with the tutorial in Skyrim, and I think his name's Hardwar, he leaves you. and he says, "Meet me in X place." I don't quite remember,
Mm-hmm.
but most people follow the path. This
Mm-hmm.
guy was like, "No, I'm gonna turn around and I'm gonna go north south." It's just yeah, and he did it, and he found some, and his playthrough changed drastically,
Right.
and much like you said, like I haven't sensed this level of non-hand holdiness
Hmm.
since I played Skyrim. And like after Skyrim, I did play Dark Souls 1, and
Mm-hmm.
it is just that it's that formula which is just so well put together.
Yep.
It is, it rarely, I don't think it's ever failed. Like, yeah, Dark Souls 2 is trashed a lot, but that's for a completely different
Different
reason.
purpose, I guess. Yeah. Yeah.
It is the formula still works, and it is so consistent, and it is so neat, and it is so flawless. Yes, I'm going to use that word. It is so flawless.
In fact,
No other game has been able to pull that off.
now that you mention it, it makes me almost wonder why is this formula not there in modern gaming? Why don't open world games just let you be sometimes?
Yeah. I mean,
It's
it has
it. I mean,
done,
Red
but
Dead is one of the games that comes to my mind when you think of this, for example, where it essentially opens you up to an open world. But
yeah,
when you try a different approach for a specific mission, it sort of like reels you back in and says, hey, you can't do that.
you can't do that.
That's
Yeah.
the irony of it. It's a fantastic game by itself, but it sort
Yep.
of has its own limitations. And
Sort of restrictive.
with something like this, there's like literally no limitations on the way you want to play the game.
Yeah.
You can go with the flame lurker with the bow and arrow. You can go with the sword. You can go with magic. You can one shot him.
Yeah.
You could take like 1,000 shots to kill him. But
Yep.
there's a way for everything.
And also, like after the first boss, it's just like, oh, okay, you beat the first boss.
Yeah.
You're experienced enough to take on any of the other
This,
5 levels.
this is the experience. Okay, so here's the thing, right? I want to talk about this for a moment before we probably move on with the segment.
Yeah, yeah, sure, sure, go on.
So when I beat Phalanx and when I
Mm,
was done with that segment of, uh, the beating the boss, getting the soul, going back to the Nexus, and
yeah.
obviously I didn't understand the concept of fuck, what's the thing called? The world tendency and character tendency. I didn't
Oh,
understand
yeah.
those concepts, but
Yeah.
at that point, and I still probably
Mm-hmm.
haven't even understood it to a great extent. But uh, when the world opened up for me, and I'm going to call it the world of Demon Souls, it it really was like an itch in the brain, like, oh, what's there in this Nexus? What's there in this art stone? What's in this art stone? What's in this art stone? And then there's that beauty and there's that sense of, holy fuck, this is spectacular. With like every art stone you visit, you go to the
Yeah.
you go to the Stonefang tunnels, it's a different experience. You go to the Tower of Latria, it's a different experience. You go to what's the fourth one? Isle of Man. What's the thing? What's it called?
Isle of Storms.
Isle of
Isle
Storm.
of Storm.
Isle of
Yeah.
Man's a country. What's wrong with me? Isle of Storm. Isle of Storm. And you're like, oh wow, this is a different experience. Then you go to the Valley of Defilement. You're like, fuck this game, I'm out. Right. So essentially, it's like it's so unparalleled in the way it like lets you be at one point,
Yeah.
and it lets you figure out what you can go to this game and do it in whatever way you want to.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very breath.
It
It's a breath of fresh air essentially for me.
it's like the box of Legos analogy from Neki Jeki. I
Yeah,
feel
yeah.
like that's the best way
That's
to
the
put it.
best way to put it. Yeah.
I mean,
Hats off to Nikki Jackie for that one.
no copyright infringement
None
intended,
intended. Yeah, but that's the
I
idea.
feel
The
like
essence is there. Yeah.
that is the essence, right? Like they give you one piece of paper, and they're like, this square piece of paper can make a dragon, it can make a fish, it can make a boat. It's origami. Do whatever you
Do
want.
whatever you want. It's
You
all
know,
it's your playground, baby.
it's and there is always an end point. There is always, there is always one part that of the game which will feel like, I have now conquered it. I am ready for more.
Yep.
You
Yep.
know,
Yep.
and it does one thing very wonderfully. It doesn't matter which stage of the game you're in. The challenges are distributed so, like, it's so balanced.
Yep.
Whether you beat all 3 bosses of one area in a row, and then you go to another area, or you beat them like 1-1, 2-1, 3-1, 4-1, and then do 1-2, 2-2, 3-2, 4-2. Okay, you will still feel the same amount of challenge across the board.
Across the board,
No
essentially.
boss is magically going to be easier for you unless you use magic. Just
That's the irony in the statement.
yeah, it's, I find that really so. it's just that, like, okay, like think back to when you were like 6 or 5 or 4, or whenever you played your first video game. And like we come from a time where like back then tutorials were like once in a blue moon you'd
Far and few
find like a,
between them. Yep.
yeah, like tutorial message. And of course these does have tutorial messages, but
Tutorials in those days were essentially just functional. Press X to jump,
yeah.
press square to slash. That's it.
And yeah, and that's pretty much what Demon Souls opens with, right? So
Yep.
there is this sense of childlike wonder, you know. It does trigger some part of your brain which does dwell on that nostalgia and is
Yep.
just like, yeah, that makes me feel good. I feel like, that childlike sense of wonder is still intact in you. And figuring it out makes you like, when you're a 4-year-old just putting together jigsaw puzzle and the final picture is revealed.
Yep.
It's that
Yeah.
joy, like you did something on your own. And I feel like it's that those ecstatic moments that actually make up Demon Souls
Yep.
more than, the grueling challenge or the dark and gritty atmosphere or the difficult combat.
Yeah.
It's the sense of satisfaction that you get from conquering these behemoth tasks.
Yep.
And
100%. 100% agree with you on that. Uh,
it's just wonderful.
it is. And
Ah,
I'm going to talk about one of my other features over here, which I just loved about the
yeah,
game. And
yeah.
I think this is something that is, I don't know, is it exclusive to the Souls like franchise, perhaps, which is the
Mhm.
messaging system.
I'm-
I'm yet to come across a game which has that. Probably I'm just missing
yeah,
out.
I think games that have derived their mechanics
Is
from the
Death
Souls
Stranding?
formula have
Is
used
Death
it.
Stranding to an extent, probably?
Yeah, it's kind of like, yeah, Death Stranding probably.
Yeah.
More, it's a little deeper than just messaging, but yeah, I mean, you essentially build stuff in Death Stranding, right?
You
It's
are doing something that's
physical
going to change
equivalent
the
of
game
that.
experience of someone else in the game.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
pretty much.
So I'm going to talk about the messaging system because for me it was like something that's completely like I went in without any idea that this even exists.
Yeah.
And there were moments. So here's the good thing, and I'm going to talk about the goods only because the bads are like they're just like for me. I'm like those few moments where someone just wanted to like meme on me and be like, "Hey,
Yeah, like
roll,"
a
and you might
treasure
find
below.
treasure below, and you roll, and you're like, "Well,
Why is my health half?
fuck you, bro." That's essentially those few moments between where someone tried to troll me and someone did troll me.
Yeah,
But what I love about the messaging system is the fact that even though you're alone in the game,
yeah,
you know you're not alone because someone else has walked this exact path, probably made the
yep,
same mistakes that you have, had the same euphoric experiences that you have had, found the items in the same sequence that you might have found them, had just as much joy or struggle in beating specific sections of the game.
yeah,
And it's happening in a shared universe is I think that's the word that I want to use over here.
yep,
And
yep,
you don't see them. I mean, you get fleeting instances of like people swooshing past you in their own avatars and forms.
yeah,
But I think that's just a phenomenal way of sharing a world with other players in the same community. And I just love
yeah.
it. I think it fits the Souls like franchise formula perfectly.
It
I
does.
wouldn't want something more intrusive than this. And I
Yeah,
wouldn't want to be a part of a world that was lonely without this.
yeah.
You know,
It does.
it's just perfection in my opinion. It's just perfection.
It's sometimes like it feeds that semblance of hope, right? Like if you're
Yep.
in a grueling boss fight, and even if you see just a glimpse of like an online player dodge rolling away from like from the flame lurker's attack, you're just like, ah, okay, I'm not alone here. It's
Yep.
reassuring. It's very
It is
reassuring.
very
It's very
reassuring in a game which
encouraging.
essentially pits you against like the hell's
The
hell of the
impossible.
spawn of hell
Yeah,
essentially.
it is the impossible. Like
Yep.
some human in bathrobes shouldn't be able to pull off that shit. Not in a million years.
Yep. Yeah.
And you
I
do
just
it.
love that system. I just love the fact that it's so
Mm.
simple in its execution, but it has such an overwhelming impact that it makes the
Yeah.
experience just 10 times better.
Yeah. And yeah, like especially for newcomers, right? Like when like I'm telling you, like try playing the game in offline mode. It is going to be you will instantly feel that emptiness.
Yeah, I will.
Like there were
I have tried that by the way. I have tried that
yeah,
already where I
yeah.
just went I think there was one particular day where my net just wasn't working.
Okay.
So I just played offline,
Uh,
and I kept wondering, something's missing, something's amiss. Why does it feel like
yeah.
I don't know. It didn't click in that instance, but when I loaded the game again with the internet back on, I'm like, holy
Yeah.
fuck! Where did all these hints come from? Why weren't they there like the last time I was
Last
running through a
time.
section of the
Mm.
map? And that's when it hit me that, oh fuck, you actually miss something when you play in offline mode,
Yeah.
and you don't realize it at first. But just seeing those messages and seeing those fleeting glimpses of ghosts running past you in their own playthroughs is just, it's something special. It's something
It
that
is.
it just completes the game to a certain extent.
Yeah. And I'm glad they stuck with that through
Throughout, I
almost
think
all
the
their
series, I
games.
think throughout the entire
Yeah,
series, I
I've
think.
and then they patched it into Sekiro as well, and I feel like for very good measure, because Sekiro wasn't. I mean, it doesn't have a co-op aspect, but yeah, I feel like just the message system is, or you know,
And we will see it return
just
for
like
Elden Ring as well, I'm
leaving.
assuming.
Oh yeah, it is definitely returning for Elden Ring, and I am glad it is.
Yep.
It just makes the world a lot less
Lonely.
hopeless.
Yep.
Yeah. Uh, let's dig into the technicalities a little bit. And when I
Okay.
say technicalities, I want to talk about visual spectacle. Like just not just visual spectacle, let's
Ooh.
call it presentation.
Okay.
It can be soundtrack, it can be level design, it can be world interconnectivity, which we can get into a little bit later because these games are rife with it.
Oh yeah,
They
it's full of
it
it.
is basically the inventor of what is called now conventionally called the Souls-like world design. So yeah, what did you think about like presentation overall?
Loved it. I really don't have any complaints with the presentation. I love the visual fidelity. Uh, I remember there were these fleeting instances where I think I've spent a fair amount of time in photo mode, to be very honest, because there are these scenes and there are these sequences where I'm like, holy fuck, that's spectacular. And
Yeah.
you just pause and you take a shot and you're like, wow. You just let it wash over you like waves. Like, oh wow, this is beautiful. This is gorgeous. Uh, Honestly, in terms of technicalities, I really don't have any flaws in that. I couldn't find any flaws in the game per se in my own experience.
Yeah, I'm
Like
surprised
it
actually.
was pretty flawless in my experience.
Yeah. Yeah.
Soundtrack wise, just phenomenal, perfect. I mean, there were
Yeah.
instances where it gave me goosebumps, made an Astray among them.
Oh, absolutely.
Uh, and I think anytime a game is able to give you goosebumps is like a winning moment in my opinion. And there are quite a few games that do that in my opinion. Like when I say quite a few particular games that I have played, God of War
Mhm.
of course is one of them.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah, for sure.
Ghost of Tsushima with the opening title sequence is one of them.
Yep.
And Made in Astraya, I think Made in Astraya was the first time that I felt that holy fuck, it's going down. That
Yeah.
rush of what the actual fuck is happening here. You know,
Yeah.
it was just sensational in my opinion. It's just an experience to behold as far as the technicalities are concerned.
Yeah.
Soundtrack, in my opinion, it's a 10 on 10. I don't think, it's that's the funny thing where it's not one of those soundtracks where you're going to like, it's not memorable, but it's nostalgic. I don't know if that makes sense,
That does make sense.
but
Yep.
it is not something you will remember at the tip of your. You won't remember it like in the back. You won't feel that it's, oh, you know what, I want to go and listen to Made in Australia soundtrack.
Yeah.
But when you hear it again after like a period of like 7 months, 8 months, 9 months, you're like, holy fuck, here we go.
Yeah. It's going to bring back a lot of
It's going to
memories,
bring back
right?
those
Like,
memories, those grueling memories, those euphoric moments all over again.
yeah.
It's a very
Yeah.
it's a very unique way the soundtrack works in this particular game. Visual fidelity, love it. I don't think that uh,
Yeah. And considering it doesn't use RTX,
it
like
does
they're all
not. That's the funny part.
manually. Yeah, I we didn't know this until we watched that Nick
We
930
had
video, right?
no
Like,
idea. I just assumed that they're using ray tracing and
sorry.
technology.
Yeah, likewise. I was like, this is what the PS5 is made for, and
Yep.
turns out no. And also like stability. I don't think I dropped frames once.
Never in the game
Even
did
when
we
it
lose
was
frames. Load
even
times
when
were
it was
sensational. Load
chaotic
times were
in the Dragon
sensational.
God. Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh, load times. Like I
Load
remember
times, yep.
the PS3 version has those, the gallery at the end of the game, right? Like where you have those character like
Yep, yep. Which
pictures.
you unlock after
That
the
those
first playthrough.
Yeah, those were the loading screens. Like those are remade loading screens from the PS3 game. And it was odd because I remember sitting through like browsing Instagram or Twitter or something while I was waiting for the game to load on PS3. And now I'm just like, there is just gray fog and I am in.
Yep.
It takes less
It
than two
is
seconds for me to
the loading
warp to an
screens are
area.
one of the reasons why this game is doable in my opinion right now for me, because
Oh yeah.
honestly, if you were to ask me, considering the number of times I've died in this game, if I had to like wait for like 3 minutes after every death, I'd probably be bummed out. I'd be like, "Fuck, this game is so." It's the funny thing. If you brood on something, if you brood on a problem, it's gonna make you feel like the problem is like insurmountable, essentially.
Yeah.
But
No, that makes
it
sense.
doesn't give you time to essentially brood over the problem. You just die or like, okay, you know what, try again. Okay, you know what,
Yeah.
try again. Okay, you know what, try again. And I think that's
Mm.
very important for a newcomer's experience. I don't know. It could be just me because I'm sure people have played Demon Souls 2009 and they've survived and endured it. But
Yeah.
I think I would have been like really bummed if I had to wait like 3 minutes after every death or a minute after every death, and just like waited to boot
Mm.
back in. I think
Mm.
it would have been a dampening experience,
Yeah. It would.
probably.
It sure as hell would have, because I remember when Bloodborne first came out, right? Like on PS4, and this was before the DLC or any of the patches.
Mm-hmm.
The loading screens were why it was criticized, because the
Mm-hmm.
loading screens were very long,
Mm-hmm.
like upwards of a minute.
Oh, that's a long time.
Yeah, and now they've been reduced to like 20-25 seconds at best. And it's still fine because it's a fast-paced game and whatnot. But I remember Demon Souls used to be horrible with its loading screens, and yeah, it is grueling. That's one of the reasons I put down the game on PS3 and I just stuck to playing it on PS5. It is just so much more. I don't know if accessible is the right word, but it is so much more immediate.
Yep, yep.
It's so much more urgent.
It doesn't test your patience. I think that's what it
It
does.
really doesn't test your patience.
Yep.
It just tests your metal. That's pretty much
That's
it.
pretty much
And
it.
I
That's
mean, it
really
tests
it.
your patience in other ways.
Many other ways.
Yeah.
We'll talk about man eaters in a bit.
Uh, oh
We'll get
God.
there.
I This is going to be a 5-hour episode.
We will get there soon. But yeah,
We
that's
will
the
get
essence
there
of it.
soon.
That's the essence. So yeah,
Another thing,
technicality wise. So one thing you mentioned
brilliant. Yeah.
I'm cutting you off over here, but the interconnectivity. I loved
Right.
it. I mean, the fact that you could just like, it doesn't feel like how in Returnal we were cursing. I wouldn't say cursing, but imagine if Returnal had something like a traveling stone between each biome.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's just a thought.
Okay.
It would have probably dampened the experience. It would have probably taken something away, but it
Yeah.
would have added value to the overall experience, in my opinion. And I think that's what the art stones do over here. The fact that you can like there are set milestones, and defeat is like you reset to that milestone in particular, that art stone in particular.
Yeah.
I think it's a very fair way of balancing a game like this.
Yeah, yeah, I was just going to say that, like, if a game's balanced well, why not?
Because if I have to draw a parallel over here, I think that's like Returnal's biggest criticism, which is like
Hmm.
it doesn't reset the level, it resets the game.
Yeah.
And I am okay with that now that I've beaten the game, but there were instances where I felt like,
Yeah.
holy fuck, this game is a difficult one.
Mm.
And it's down to that one mechanic not being there, essentially.
Yeah.
Right?
I kind of relate. Yeah. I might have to ponder over that just a little bit more,
Yeah, so
because
it's a
like there's a
it's
lot
not
of
exactly
factors, right?
I
Like there's
wouldn't say it's apples and oranges, but it's
apples
oranges
and
and
green apples.
yeah, it's green apples and apples, or it's oranges
Yeah.
and tangerines, whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, there is that sense of, I don't know, it's there. It's something to think about, maybe. I don't know. It's just a thought that hit me like an apple on my head.
Uh, Ironic.
So yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
you were saying
All
something.
it's no, yeah. So like coming to presentation, right? Like sort of spinning off of what you said. Uh, just how they present everything to you. They drip feed information the right amount.
Mm-hmm.
It's nothing is like an open book. You're not going through every level with some character telling you, this was the guy who did wiggly woo and swim
Nothing.
swarms and willy worms. It's just nothing. It's just like you pick an item up, you want to know more about the story, you
Here's a
press square,
description.
you read the lore. Yeah. And then you piece it together, or you let Vati Vidya do that job for you. And then you watch then you watch his content. But that's something. So that is something I did when I first played Demon Souls and Dark Souls and Bloodborne, and because I love doing that, I love puzzles that go deeper, like rabbit holes of puzzles. And I feel like Demon Souls really scratches that itch. And I'm saying Demon Souls because with the context of the podcast, but in general, the whole series, right? It is just such an intricate way of telling stories while giving you concrete enough information and also keeping a whole lot of it open to interpretation.
Yep.
So
Yep.
your interpretation of the game would be very different from mine, would be very different from, say, Vati Vidya, for example. You know, it is just that sort of quality that opens up a lot for discussion, and I feel like that's bred a strong community. Uh,
Absolutely. 110% agree with this.
yeah, it's just that level of presentation, right? And it hasn't, I don't like, yeah, other games do. Like, for example, if you take your Assassin's Creed and your Far Cry's and even your Ghost of Tsushima, they have scrolls, they have, like, God of War has those
They have predefined
boards,
mechanisms to
and
give you lore.
yeah, it's usually like a codex or something. And again, it's drip fed.
Yep.
And but it's a little more concrete, like you're expecting it to happen. And it gives you a very one take view of the world. And that's, again, it's not a bad thing. It's just what the
It's just
creators of the game
vanilla. In
wanted
my
to
opinion, it's
be.
just vanilla. But
Yeah.
what
And
Demon
it
Souls
is,
done is,
yeah,
is,
and it's
is
also like the artist's direction, right? Like in Hades, if
yes.
Supergiant wants you to experience the story through lore, they are going to give you a codex because that is how they thought of it. But when it comes to Demon Souls, them leaving a lot open to interpretation is their way of telling you that, look, you're putting in the work, just this is part of it.
This is
You're
your
already
story,
doing the hard
is
work.
what Demon Souls feels like to me.
Exactly. I don't think there's a better way to put it. It is your story, right?
Yep.
It's an RPG at the end of the day, and you define what you do.
You define your experience and you define the way you want to interpret your experience. So, going off on
Yeah.
this tangent, right, where we talk about the whole presentation and how the interpretation works. When I
Yeah.
was done with Made in Astray, I think Made in Astray was Value of Defilement, if I'm not wrong. It
Yeah.
was. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when I finished that sequence of that particular art stone, is when for the first time I felt, you know what, I need to read more about the story. Like I
Mm.
need to know more about why do I have to face a pure white angelic maiden surrounded by blood and corpses after beating a colossus and a leechmonger? Why is she here? Like you have a sense of what her purpose might have been in the first place,
Hmm.
and you probably know that, okay, you know what, she has been lost, she's been defiled, essentially, is why she's here now, and she's like lost all hope.
Yeah.
So she's like the one beacon for the ones that are completely deprived of hope, right?
Yeah.
And that's when I realized, oh, you know what, this game has a lot more layers to it than it does tell you at first.
I
And
just got
that's
chills, but
that's really when I started like wanting to understand the varied interpretations of why is this the way it is. The why question
yeah.
became a lot. So before that point, I was just asking, okay, what's next? What's next? What's the next boss going to be like? What's the next boss going to be like? After that instance with Maiden Astraya, my question changed to why. Why is the man eater block bob? Why is the man eater here? Why am I
Mm.
having to face the fool's idol? Why is the penetrator the penultimate boss before King Alant?
Mhm.
These are the questions that I started pondering afterwards when I beat each boss down after that sequence thereafter. Very, very, very intriguing sequence of events for me, because up until that point it felt like a very, it's like the game is presenting to you challenges, but at that point for me the it turned into a story for me. It turned into a tale for me,
Yeah.
a folklore for me almost, if you will.
Yeah.
And at that
Yeah.
point I was like, holy fuck, this is a lot more layered than I thought it would be. And
Yeah.
that's the tipping point where I'm like, okay, you know what, I'm going to spend my time soaking it in. I don't want to rush through the game now. I
Yeah.
want to soak. I still was up until that point. I was still absorbing whatever the game throws at me. But then I changed my approach. I was like, I'm going to absorb whatever the game has to offer,
Yeah.
and I love that. And I love that aspect of the game because that's what kept me going from that point on till beating the game thereafter.
Yeah. It's very interesting that seems to be like that is considered to be the general consensus. It is it is very game changing once you start asking the right questions, right? You
Yep.
already had the answers. You just weren't asking the
You
right
just weren't
questions.
seeing there. You weren't seeing them. That's it.
Yeah, it's just because it's been so deeply ingrained into everyone who approaches these games like, oh, it's hard, you have to beat everything. It's never like, it's challenging, give it a shot, see what you get out of it.
Yep.
You
Yep.
know, it's everyone's like, no, I have to beat it because, and it's become an ego thing among a lot of gamer bros. It's just like, oh, I beat Dark Souls at so level 1. Yeah, okay, like, yeah, you did that, but was your the first experience would have been a lot more magical than, you just conquering a
Your
challenge because you can.
which is which is which is the essence of it, right? So if I have to, if I wouldn't even call this like the flaw in the game, but every sequence of every playthrough after the first is going to feel a little diminished, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's one of those games I'd like to forget just to replay.
Yes, it's like Red Dead, in that way. You're like, can I just wipe my memory and play this all over again? It's that
Yeah, like Red Dead, God of War.
God of War, yeah. Some of those Last of Us, I would say probably to an extent.
Yeah, to an extent.
Yeah.
Yeah, it falls in that category of like,
I
damn,
wish
I
I could
want to
wipe my memory
experience
to
this
play this
all over
again for the
again.
first time. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
I
feeling.
wish I could do that all over again.
Yeah.
It's just,
Even Skyrim, for that matter of fact. I mean, there's a joy playing Stealth Archer for the first time, and you have the same joy playing Stealth Archer for the 50th time, but that's the essence of it.
yeah, it's very unique. I don't know, I can't sum it up
Yep.
probably very eloquently, but I feel like it is the brainchild that actually cracked gaming for the last decade.
Hmm.
Everything that Demon Souls did was then done to death by other developers, and very few came to nailing it.
Yep.
Very few came close
Very
to
few got
nailing
the
it.
formula
Very,
right.
very, very,
Yep.
very
Yep.
few.
Yep. I agree.
And the ones who did get it right were the ones who developed Demon Souls.
Yep.
Uh, Obvious reasons there, but it feels like, yeah, it brought something new to the games industry. It introduced a lot of mechanics in video games, and it has, to a large extent, revolutionized how we look at
Oh,
JRPGs
100%.
now.
110%. I'm
Yeah,
telling you, I would say to that extent how it's revolutionized how we look at games in general. Where
yeah,
I just asked that one question to you when I was done with the game, remember? Why do modern games feel so complex when they can be so simple?
yeah.
And
It's
it's a interesting question because why do modern games feel the necessity to feed you so much information when they can just let you figure it out on its own? Like
yeah.
I'll give you an interesting parallel here, right? God of War. Although God of War isn't
Mhm.
like, it's giving you information in very unique ways. It's giving you all the information you need, but in very unique ways. You have Mimir's
Hmm.
tales while the world loads, essentially. World loads, quote unquote. You
Yeah.
have the entire one cut shot film like sequence of the game, but there's a constant narration that's happening.
Hmm.
And that's a unique experience in its own right. And that's, I would say,
Oh,
something that's
absolutely.
absolutely 110% memorable. And then
Yeah.
you have Demon Souls, which is essentially I wouldn't say the exact opposite, but it's like a completely diluted and dumbed down version of that same concept. The narration's there, the lore is there. You just have to find it. And you
Yeah.
want to find it. That's the fun part about it.
Yeah.
Because when you don't
Yeah.
have that information with you when you're playing the game, because the game's fun, and then you just want that other 50% which sort of complements what you're doing in the game itself. And you're
Yeah.
like, oh wow, this is actually phenomenal. I mean, playing the game, realizing what each sword is about, realizing what each boss is about, having the information, reading about it at
Yeah.
your own will, is a different experience altogether. And I think that's one of the most essential components of the game, which makes it a technical masterpiece to an extent.
Yep. I would go as far as saying it is probably the best game I've played on this console so far.
So far,
It
probably,
is, yeah.
probably. I
Prob
mean, I,
As of recording this video.
we have a tier list for that as well.
Oh yeah. We will
We could do a
soon
tier
in the
list.
future.
2020 year one PlayStation 5 tier list of
Yeah,
video games.
year
We could
one
do that.
PlayStation 5.
We could do that actually.
Uh, yeah,
Podcast
we
idea.
could have
Scribbling that down.
that. Hmm. Let's write that down. Let's
Yep.
work towards that. Speaking of tier lists,
I
do
think we
we
can
get
hop
into
right
it
into it.
now?
Let's hop right into tier lists.
Nice.
All right, so let me just change this scene and I shall be right back. So Brent Skinner is the guy who's done these artworks. Shout out to you, Brent Skinner. I thought about picking up the artworks from the game itself, but I was like, hey, you know what? Tier list,
No,
this is just
let's give this guy
this guy
some
some love. He
credit. It's
deserves some love.
those are
Okay.
amazing.
Yep, yep. So, all right. Now here's how I think we should do this, and I'm just gonna set up this one thing over here in the meanwhile.
Yeah.
And all right. So
All right. How do we begin? Do we go by world order? Do we go
let's
easiest
just
to
go in the sequence of the
game?
illustration seen at the bottom.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sure. That works.
All right. So first we have the
The
Adjudicator, I believe it is.
okay. Okay. Interesting. Interesting one to begin with, I
Yep.
would say.
Where would you place the Adjudicator?
Uh,
So, okay, so
I
let's,
would
before we place them into your rankings,
criteria.
obviously criteria. I think we should do this on the basis of two things: difficulty and fun. What do you say? Like,
Um, yeah, difficulty, fun. I was also going to add design and
oh
presentation.
yes, oh yeah, I like that idea. I
Yeah.
like the
So
idea.
difficulty, fun, design, and presentation. I think 4
Sounds good.
criteria.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Go for it.
Yeah.
Adjudicator.
Adjudicator, right?
Yep.
I would put it in tier 5.
So tier 5 is
Just
the worst. Tier 1 is the best. Tier 5 is the worst.
yeah, I would still put it in.
Really?
Wait. Yeah, I would still put it in tier 5.
Okay.
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 And no, I mean, of course, your opinions. Let's weigh this
So
out.
I would have put Adjudicator at tier 3. Sorry, tier
Okay.
4. Sorry, my bad.
Okay. Okay.
For the simple reason that how do I say this? It's a very all the bosses in Demon Souls, uh, they have like some element to it which is kind of unique.
Yeah.
And my first experience with Adjudicator is what makes it like a tier 4 boss in my opinion, which is I entered the fog chamber and I'm like, there's a health bar which is Adjudicator. I'm like, hold, where is this guy? And I can't see him. I don't know where the fuck the Adjudicator is. And then suddenly there's a
Yeah.
big tongue that lashes out at me and kills
That
me in one shot.
whips you.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
what the fuck was that? And then I'm like, oh, this guy is below. Then I go down,
Yeah.
I try to fight him, and I can't
Yeah.
do shit to him. I can't do shit to
Yeah.
him. And I'm like, wait, how do you even kill this boss? Then I'm like, oh, there's a golden bird on top.
Ah.
That's the key. And then I whip
Mm.
out my bow. I kill the bird with a bow when I'm playing a knight character, which is kind of funny.
Yeah.
And then I realized that hey, I could just knock him off.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
When you hit his sword that's
when you-
lodged in his side.
essentially, and that's the cheese.
Yeah.
And I think this game, I think this particular boss, the Adjudicator, is one that's got so many varied ways in which you could beat it that I feel it
Okay.
probably deserves like a tier higher.
Okay. I think I'm sold on that argument. Let's
Alright.
put it in tier 4.
Let's go tier
Because
4.
yeah, for when it came to fun, I think there was an element of fun. Challenge, I did not think it was challenging.
Once you get the
but
cheese,
yes.
Adjudicator is like no challenge. It's like a breeze of. It's a
Presentation,
breeze.
yeah, I think presentation it wins, and design also. Like I find
Oh.
I find the Adjudicator to be really
He's a
grotesque
menacing
and spine chilling, and
I would go so far as to say
Oh,
that the
yeah.
Adjudicator is probably the most. Wait, hold on. Who's the boss? Who's the second boss in the Isle of Storm?
old hero.
Old hero. Then you have Storm King.
Then you have the Storm King. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the Adjudicator is my favorite boss in that particular.
Oh,
Hearthstone.
really?
Yep,
Okay.
Yep.
Nice. Good to know. Okay. All right. All right. I think tier 4 is
Tier
perfect
4
for.
sounds good. All right.
Yeah.
Next we have the Armored Spider, my friend.
Ahmad Spider. I will strongly stick to tier 5 on this one
Okay.
because
I'm
it
gonna
did
agree
not.
with you on
It is truly a gimmick.
Yep,
It
yep,
is.
yep.
It plainly relies on gimmick. Otherwise, very easy boss.
Very easy boss.
Once
I
you
think I got
figure
it in
it
my
out.
first. I got the Armored Spider in my first this thing. I think no second.
Yeah.
Second instance is when I got the Armored Spider. Pretty straightforward boss.
Yeah. I
Good
feel
design,
like yeah,
strong
presentation kind of lacking. Design is good.
Yep.
Soundtrack is good. Overall, I feel like it could have been a lot more,
Mm-hmm.
but it just felt like Phalanx 2.0 in a
Yep,
lot of ways.
yep,
Like it just felt like another tutorial boss.
yep. Essentially.
That's what I mean when I say Phalanx 2.0.
Yep, yep. Agree with you on
Tier
that.
5 sounds good.
Tier 5 sounds good to me as well for
Yeah.
Armored Spider. Alright,
Yep.
we have the Dirty Colossus next. And I'm going to say tier 5 for Dirty Colossus as well.
I will agree. I was gonna say tier 5.
Mm-hmm.
Um
I
just
think I
primarily
think
because
you saw me
I found it
beat
way
Dirty
too
Colossus on the
easy.
first go, if I'm not wrong.
Yes,
I think you were there on with me on share screen that
I
day. Yeah,
was.
you were. Yep, yep, yep.
Yep. Fire Longsword, I remember if I'm
Fire
not wrong.
Longsword. Yeah, it was way too easy for me. This guy was way too easy for me.
Yeah.
And I
It
was like,
also just felt like a boss that was shoehorned in.
yeah, it
Um,
felt like it was just wedged in to give us a boss essentially. Like
yeah.
it's almost like they ran out of ideas and they're like, okay, you know what? Here's a Dirty Colossus for you.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I feel like even like Leechmonger before it, and I think we'll get
Yeah.
to Leechmonger soon enough. Um, I don't know. It just didn't feel like, yeah, I know they have a purpose to exist there,
Yep.
of course, but it's it just didn't feel as impactful as say Adjudicator and then Old Hero or
Mm-hmm.
Flame Lurker and then sorry, is it Flame or even Armor Spider Flame Lurker,
Yep.
it all
Yep.
felt very sequential. This felt very out of place.
Yes. Yes. I agree.
This was just like, let us give them an easy boss because the level
Yeah.
before it was incredibly hard.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. It's sort of like a
Yeah.
balancing mechanism in the game
And
itself.
audience, yes, we sound like total we sound like we're contradicting ourselves after really gushing about the game. But
Well,
I think it boils down to just making a tier list at this point.
it does. It really does.
Yeah.
All right. Next, we have what I
I can't
believe
quite
is. Hold on, I need to zoom this.
I can't
It's
quite
the
see that.
Dragon God. That's the Dragon God. There you go.
Ooh.
All right.
Man, Dragon God gets
I'm gonna go ahead
full
and put
points for
Dragon God.
presentation.
I'm gonna go ahead and say Dragon God is a tier 3 boss for me.
Yes, it is tier 3. Even on my list, it's tier 3.
I think we have a lot of aligning thoughts on this one.
Yeah, it's just I feel like presentation it's a 10 on 10.
Yep.
There is just it's fun, it is challenging because it's all about timing, right? Like it's very gimmicky. So it boils down to timing, but presentation and I mean challenge based on timing, okay, fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
Um Fun. I think it is fun. I feel
Oh
like
yes, yes,
it is the
110%.
only boss that puts you on edge because it's like, how are you going to beat a fucking dragon?
And it
No,
does
like,
not give you the information you need to sort of kill it at first. You just
yeah.
have like this pathway on the right, and you. I think on the first playthrough you will never have the left pathway unblocked because it's not possible for you to have pure white tendency at that point.
Yeah.
So you always have to go to the right, and it's almost infuriating at some point to find a way to dodge those punches that the dragon god throws in the walls.
Oh, yeah.
And then I realized that okay, fuck, I'm fat rolling, so that's why it's so difficult. It could have just been
Yeah.
10 times more easy without a fat roll. But yeah, I think for the first instance, it had that
It's
sense of.
pretty,
It is that sense of, yeah.
yeah.
And visual spectacle wise, oh, Dragon God's one of the best.
Oh, it's easily one of the best.
Yeah.
Tier 3 is solid.
Hat tip to the controller's feedback on this one because
Oh,
with each
yeah.
roar, the controller would just go bonkers, honestly. It was just crazy.
Yeah. It's something else, I feel, haptics.
Yep. Yep.
They really give it an edge.
They did. This game without haptics would have been something else. I don't think it would have been as good, honestly.
Yeah.
For the first playthrough, definitely.
No, yeah, it wouldn't.
All right. Next.
Flame Lurker, if I'm not wrong.
Is that the Flame Locker? It is the Flame Locker. You're absolutely correct.
S tier boss.
S tier boss to me. Yes. Flame Locker
S
was.
tier boss.
Yeah, I would go so far as to say that Flame Locker is not the hardest boss in my opinion. I did find one boss harder than this one.
Particularly hard.
Particularly hard.
or
which,
one set of bosses.
one set of bosses which I'm going to talk about in an instance over here. But yeah, loved the Flame Lurker. I think the first time I tried to beat the Flame Lurker, it was kind of difficult for me. Then I came
Yeah.
back with a Crescent Faction +5 and I'm like, oh yeah, now it's possible. But I still had to put in a lot of work to beat this guy.
This is so like how for Returnal we had Nemesis, which was like
Yep.
the turning point. I feel like it
Flame
for a
Lurker
lot of
is the
people
nemesis of Demon Souls.
it's either Flame Lurker or it's Man Eaters,
Yep, yep, yep.
demons. It's either one of those two, and once you beat them, it's just,
You feel
or either
unstoppable.
one
You
of them
feel
just feel
unstoppable
unstoppable.
essentially.
I'm like,
Yeah.
now this is I own this game.
Yep.
You
I'm
know,
the demon
it.
now.
Yeah, I am the flame lurker now. Also, surprisingly enough, no gimmicks. It's a very straightforward
Yes.
fight.
Which is what I love about this one, honestly. Because
Yeah.
I feel I wouldn't say overdone, but I feel like this game could have done a lot more with a few bosses which did not have gimmicks.
Mm,
Like
which is,
I kind of missed
yeah,
gimmicks in some of the bosses, honestly.
yeah. Which I feel like they realized that the bosses were too gimmicky, and then future games had very
Have tuned
few
them out
gimmick
essentially.
bosses.
Yep, yep. I
Yeah,
think so too.
they weeded out a lot of the gimmicks. So I feel like Flamelurker is a tier one boss just based on the fact that it is just a very straightforward fight and it expects you to be good.
Yep, yep. It
Also,
almost demands it of you.
yeah, also 10 on 10 presentation, 10 on
Oh
10
yes,
fun, 10.
soundtrack 10 on 10. The
Yeah,
menacing. I think Flame Lurker is one of the most menacing bosses in the game.
opening cutscene for that boss
Opening
fight is
cutscene
a
for that
10 on
boss
10.
fight is absolutely insane. The boss fight
Yeah.
itself is absolutely menacing. Some of these bosses, I would say, are not as intimidating.
Yeah.
Flame Lurker is very intimidating.
Yeah. Not many people are comfortable fighting Flame Lurker.
Not in the first
It's,
instance at all. I remember I tried a
yeah,
couple of times and I'm like, fuck this, I'm back. I'm trying a different art
quitting
stone.
for a while. Yeah.
Yeah, not yet, but a different art stone. Uh,
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
think,
basically.
yeah, essentially. Yeah, I'll come back to this when I beat that.
Who's next? Is
Fool's
that
Idol.
Maiden's Triumph?
That's Fool's
Oh,
Idol.
it's Fool's Idol. Okay.
And I'm going to
Okay.
go ahead and put Fool's Idol in tier 5 for me. What do you
Tier
think?
5? Yep. Super agree. Super agree.
Yeah, very. I
Uh,
think I would go so far as to say as this is the easiest boss in the game.
yeah, I would.
It's
I
just
mean, there's
not a
Phalanx,
boss. Oh,
but
so there, I think we're gonna have a fun time when we talk about Phalanx, and I think that's gonna be very interesting.
okay.
But we'll get
Okay.
there when we get there. But
As
but yeah,
we'll get there. Fool's
Fool's
Idol.
Idol is
Yeah.
straightforward for me. Too simple, too simple.
Too simple. Too, so in my
The platinum
opinion,
was
way
a
too gimmicky.
yeah too gimmicky. The platinum was a I wouldn't say a challenge, but it just
Yeah.
prolongs the fight a little more. That's about it.
Mm. It's just a little bit of observation can get you uh
Can mess
like
or
sorted. Yeah,
yeah
either mess you up or get you sorted.
yeah
Um, Most underwhelming. Also, it honestly felt like it was a little out of place. Until
yes
I figured out and put together the lore or I watched whatever videos I did, it
yes
felt a little out of place.
yep
Good presentation though. I feel like the entire build up to it is nice.
yep I agree
But that's about it. There was no, like, it's mostly just waiting behind pillars and finding an opening, right?
yep
Yeah, I guess
100%.
tier 5 Fool's Idol.
All right, Kedar, we have the meme boss. We have King
Who?
Alant, and when I say King Alant, I'm talking about the one
Oh,
that's below the Nexus.
the old King Alant.
Yep.
That's so lore wise, presentation wise, I'd say tier 4.
Okay.
But otherwise, I would say tier 5 because it just,
All right. I think we're going to go and put this in tier 4 because I agree with you on this.
yeah.
Although it's not a boss per se, it's
It
not really a boss, but
so it serves its purpose as
it
the
serves a very important purpose
conclusion
in the
of the
game.
game, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And I feel like that is the only reason I'm putting it.
That's the
I
only
am
reason I put it
agreeing
in
to
tier
tier
4.
4.
Yep.
Yeah. Otherwise, very underwhelming. Also, great reward for killing him. So, not gonna complain.
Spoiler alert. Too late for
You get.
that.
No, I didn't say what you get.
Yeah.
You beat the game,
You
but
have to beat the game anyway, so hey. If you haven't played Demon Souls till now, anyway, you should not be watching this podcast.
you shouldn't be watching.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Leechmonger.
Leechmonger. I'm going to go ahead and put Leechmonger in 4 in my opinion. What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree to 4. Primarily, I wouldn't be opposed to putting Leechmonger in 3
Okay.
because it is the first boss, or well, not particularly the first boss.
Mm-hmm.
It is a boss that doesn't appear to be challenging, but is
Mm-hmm.
actually quite challenging on your first try. If you haven't figured out how Phalanx works, right? Like with fire, then this guy is going to be a nightmare.
Yes, I agree with you. I agree with you 100%.
He can kill you ranged, he can kill you close ranged, he can kill you
He
by
has the tools to really
pushing you off
be a menace.
platforms.
Yep.
He can kill you by leeching off of your health. It is a clusterfuck of shit if you don't get it right.
Yeah,
And I
literally.
feel like that those hidden mechanics of the boss fight, no, it just takes it up a notch for me.
Yep. I would agree. I would broadly agree. I think I just got lucky, honestly, when I went in with a Dragon Longsword +5
Yeah.
with the
It's the
Leechmonger, and
fire.
I'm like, well, that that's just it's common sense, right? It's a leech
Yeah.
monger, so fire should work against
Mm.
this. And then my common sense turned out to be correct, fortunately for
Yep.
me. And it was quite simple for me. But I do agree that on the instances that I let my guard down, even with a Dragon Longsword +5, this thing here hurt like a bitch, honestly, sometimes.
Yeah.
And
Like
I was
you're
like,
taking off a third of his health, maybe per hit.
yep,
You can three shot this boss if you do it right, but he can one shot you if you slip up
if you
once.
slip up once, yep, essentially.
You know, it's I like that. I like that. It feels very fair
Yep,
to my
I
in my
agree. I agree
opinion.
with you. I agree with you.
Yeah. Okay, next one. Take it away.
Oh, we have
I think
Gal
we'll agree
Winland.
on this.
Sorry, I mean we have Maiden Astray. I'm gonna put Maiden Astray in tier 2.
Yes. I'm pretty much aligned with that.
Yeah. So I think what I love about this particular boss fight is the fact that it gives you options.
Yeah.
You could do the degenerate. I'm gonna shoot like 1,000 arrows into Maiden Astray from range,
Yeah.
or I'm going to try and bully Gal Winland, or get bullied by Gal Winland
Yeah.
and do it my way.
Mhm.
The alternate way, of course, is you can jump into a pool of death and die. That's the third way of doing it, but I wouldn't recommend that one.
Not-
Overall, I think
Yeah.
as far as the setting of this particular boss goes,
Mhm.
A1 setting, the build up is fantastic, soundtrack is class.
Oh,
It gives you the options. It tells you, you know what, this is one way you can do it, this is way two you can do it the way you
yeah.
want to. The reward is
Mhm.
exceptional. I think when I was playing with my knight class, and you told me, hey, you should go and get Garland Lynn's armor, I was like, oh, what? Dark Silver
Yeah.
set? I didn't even know about this.
Yeah.
And then I ran
Yeah.
back to to the area, and I was like, holy crap, that armor is like sensational.
It's god tier. There
It is
is
the best
nothing
armor in the
better
game
than that.
for
It is the
for
best
the
armor
night
in the
for the
game.
night
Yeah, it's got
class.
magic protection off like through the roof.
Yep, it's
I don't
just
think I've
brilliant.
equipped. And it's an all-round armor set. Like I used it on a sorcerer class and it worked.
Yeah,
So
it's like the jack of all. That's what I love about this one.
yeah, it's incredible. Also lore. I would say like Maiden Astraya's
Lore
lore is
wise,
where
Maiden Astraya's lore is probably among the best in the game, in my opinion.
best. Yeah, easily.
Yep.
Easily. Tier 2, I agree. It again for the same pretty much the same reasons. Like you have a lot of options to take her out.
Hmm.
And you actually it is one of those bosses where you feel like shit for killing her initially.
Yeah, you kind of feel bad. I did
Yeah.
feel bad when I killed Maiden Astraya. I was like, why am I? I had this moment where I'm like, what am I even doing in this game? Why? That's when I asked the question why.
Why?
Remember, I
Right?
asked the question why at this
Yeah.
instance. I'm like, who can I? What is happening in this game?
It feels a little overkill, but then you realize, like the lore tells you, right?
You
Like they're
had to.
drawing power
You had to
from,
at one point. You just had to.
yeah,
It
they're
sucks, but
drawing
you have
power
to.
from the old one. They're drawing power from what is essentially the bad,
Yep. And that
and
doesn't
it
make her
just
good.
had
It
to be
makes her
done.
evil.
Yeah, even though she's like basically the
She's using her
Messiah.
evil for good, essentially, but she's still evil.
It's weird. Like they flip the
It's a,
script
it's a
on you and they
very it's a
expect
very
you to
yeah it's a very
empathize.
twisted way of looking at a evil character in the game. Interesting way.
It's
And that's
very
what
cool
that's what makes it a very. I love these instances of gray areas in video games all over, like
all the time.
morality, choice, moral fiber, whatever you want to call it. Just love it. It just makes you want to
Yeah.
when it makes you ask the question why, it really leaves you wanting more, essentially.
Wanting more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All
All right,
right.
all right. I'm gonna give
All
the
yours.
next boss with a finger, which is this one. Uh, this one is the man eater. I'm gonna put this in tier 1.
Yeah. It's an S tier boss.
Okay, before I
I
talk
would
about
agree.
why I hate this boss with all my heart and soul and souls, uh, love the boss fight. It's a phenomenal boss fight.
It
Uh,
is.
I think for me, this boss fight became a tier 1 boss fight because when I was beating the first man eater, it was challenging enough as it is. And I went in with absolutely no idea how this boss fight works, right? I had
Hmm.
no idea that midway through this boss fight, the second one spawns. I had nothing, no clue.
Mhm.
And there was the first time that I beat the first, like not beat the first man-eater, but I got the man-eater down to a threshold at
Mm.
which the event triggers or the second man-eater joins the fight. That for me was probably the biggest what the fuck moment in the game entirety.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, so this is the curveball this game is throwing at me at this instance. Besides the fact that you would essentially fight on a tightrope,
Yeah.
uh, I just love that moment of, holy fuck, when this game threw the second man-eater at you and you're like expected to
Yeah.
deal with both the flying menaces at one time.
Yeah.
And they have the gimmicks, you know how to beat them. You chop off
Yeah.
the tail, you wound them, you make them vulnerable, and you play around the center, like the whole,
The
uh,
podium thingy.
yeah, the podium thing, whatever you want to call it in the center, the brazier essentially.
Yeah. That's yeah.
And yeah, it was just a very frustrating and a very rewarding fight, honestly.
It is.
I might
It,
have died more in
oh.
this boss fight alone than I did in the entire game elsewhere. And you've probably seen me die about half those times.
Yeah, I have.
And for most of the part,
Uh,
I have died just falling off the cliff. That's just it.
yeah.
Just making one wrong roll and you're.
Yeah, that was more
That was.
often than not.
There
I
was a
don't
point.
feel like
There was a point
yeah.
when I was just like laughing it off. It was almost maniacal. Like I was
Yeah.
two deaths away from becoming the Joker, and that's when I beat the Man-Eater.
I'm glad you did when you did.
Oh man, that was love it, love hate relationship with the Man-Eater. Could not. This
Yeah.
game wouldn't have been the same without the Man-Eaters, honestly.
Yeah, it
And
really would. I feel like no boss can be
I
removed
have no
to keep
complaints. I
going.
honestly give me more bosses like the Man-Eater. It might suck at one point, but hey, it makes the game better.
Yeah, the Man-Eater coincidentally so successful that the wombo combo duo thing is in every Souls game after.
Oh dear
There
God,
is there every game has like either two or three bosses fighting you at the same time.
dear
So
Lord.
hey, you asked for it. Now go
Oh Jesus
play.
Christ. All right, that's it, Kedar. We're cutting off the segment right here.
Wait, no, but old hero needs to be put somewhere.
Old hero goes to tier 4 for me.
Okay.
Uh,
I'd say tier 3 because I like it's an interesting gimmick.
Okay.
It's a very
I
interesting gimmick.
think, and I agree with you to a certain extent. So let's put it in tier 3. Uh,
Hmm.
I think this hero was this boss was a little too underwhelming for me,
Mm,
which is why I
I
would,
get that.
which is why it doesn't feel like a tier 2 or tier 1 boss. Like I
Yeah.
almost want this boss to challenge me more, but it doesn't do that,
Mm.
and that's kind of disappointing, honestly, because it's got the right lore, it's got the right design. The idea is
Yeah,
fantastic. The
it's got
build up to the
great
boss is
design.
great.
Hmm.
But then the boss itself feels kind of underwhelming, and you're like, well, I just have to dodge his
Yeah.
swings and hits and misses,
Yeah.
and
And
that's about
walk.
it.
Just
And
don't
just,
run or sprint. Just
yeah,
walk.
it's just, and same concept, and I'm rambling, but the gimmicks I felt a little over. I think that's the only, like, downside of the entire game, in my opinion. Like, it gets the
Yeah.
bosses it
It
makes the bosses
overplays
too.
the gimmicks.
Yeah, the gimmicks are a little overdone, in my opinion. That's the only complaint I have about the entire game, actually.
Yeah, likewise, I would say. But I did find the old heroes, lack
Fun,
of vision
fun,
to be
fun,
an
fun
interesting
concept.
gimmick.
Fun
Yeah.
concept. Concept wise, I think the old hero is sensational.
Mm,
Honestly, yeah.
yeah. Feels fair.
All
Who
right, we have
is
King
that who I
Elant.
think it is? Oh,
Yes,
Fall Gallant. Yeah,
I
S
am just
tier.
gonna put him in S tier.
Yeah.
Anime boss battle number one, numero
Yeah.
uno. Uh,
Yeah.
very good duel. I think it's the only duel essentially, in my opinion, in the entire game, except if you don't count the penetrator. And uh, I would consider penetrator as a duel in that sense.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Uh, King
Oh,
Elant
like I would
was
even Tower Knight, but yeah, we'll get to that later.
uh, well. I have a couple of things on Tower Knight as well.
Okay, sure.
So King
But
Elant
yeah.
was exceptionally good in my opinion. Like the whole boss
Oh,
challenge, the challenge
yeah.
was sensational. You saw me beat King Elant for the first time.
Yeah, I did.
So and you saw me struggle to beat Elant at a lot of instances.
Yep.
So it was really a rewarding experience. I think I went in a little underpowered, honestly, not exactly underpowered, but
Slightly
I
under
could have
level.
been a little more soul, like my soul level could have been a little higher than it was.
Yeah. The
But
fucker stole a lot of it from you.
oh yeah, that is what I think, that aspect of the game really caught me off guard. Like the man-eaters before this, right?
Yeah.
Where it just throws something at you which you don't expect at all,
Yeah.
and it just threw me off my game. I'm like, what the fuck did he
Mm.
just do? And it's almost soul crushing. It's funny. It's appropriate in that sense. It's like
Yeah, it is very
when you
appropriate.
when you get caught by that one specific attack and he like sucks the soul out of you and he
So,
reduces your power and your ability for the runs
oh.
henceforth. You're just like,
Yeah,
holy
it's not
fuck,
even
I
like
can't.
it resets after a time or
Yeah,
or your
that
failure or
one
what.
that one feature of the boss is what makes it like a end game boss for me, honestly. Like it's
Yeah.
it's it's sort of like it tells you, like you've learned so much along the way. If you can't beat me, you must suffer the agony and the consequences.
Mm.
And I think that's
It's the
very fitting.
ultimate test of strength,
It's the
right? Like
ultimate. Like
you
you cannot
know,
like you can't
yeah,
misstep at this point. If you're
yeah, you
misstepping,
know
you're doing something
everything
wrong.
there is to know. You know
Yep.
everything there is to know. You have conquered every single challenge up until this point.
Yep.
This is the ultimate. Like
Absolutely.
this is the day.
Absolutely agree. 110% agree with you on this. King Alert, love the
Yeah.
boss.
Oh,
Great story.
best.
Honestly, he sums up the story essentially for me.
Yeah.
Of course, if we don't consider old King Alert.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
very, very fitting end to the entire game, in my opinion.
Mm. Yeah. I agree. I
Right?
agree.
All right. Next, we have Old Monk. Not the whiskey, but not the rum, sorry, but the boss.
Old monk.
Old Monk, I think, was a tier 5 for me.
Tier 5.
Yep.
I would agree. But again, I would just say interesting gimmick. No, let's put it in tier 5 because vanilla old monk is very boring. Very,
Very
very, very,
boring,
very,
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 very
very
boring.
boring.
And honestly, it didn't feel so. When I learned that it's a PvP boss
In
essentially,
fight. Yeah.
and I tried doing it in the PvP mode,
Yeah.
I think at that point I was too late to enjoy the PvP aspect of it.
Mm.
When I say too late, it's obviously other players who have probably like played Demon Souls to death essentially, and they're like spawn camping me and coming with these bizarre
Yeah.
weapon combinations which I've never even heard of.
Yeah. I
And I was
remember
like,
the
how do I
spawn
even
camp.
beat this game? How do I even beat this game at this point? And I was
Yeah.
like, hey, let's just do it the vanilla way and we can figure this out later on.
Mm. I think that is the only time you played the game offline intentionally.
Intentionally, yep, 100% agree on that.
Yeah,
I
I
think I
would
think
say the
the
same.
harder bosses in the old monk were the two fuckers who slap you with
The the
what are
Cthulhu
yeah, what
spellcasters,
what the fuck are
the
they called? I
jailers.
forgot. Yeah, those guys are the actual bosses in this sequence
Oh
essentially.
yeah, I hate those guys. I feel like though they would be on tier 3 in my opinion.
They would
Just
be tier 0. They would be like one tier above tier 1. Those guys are the worst. They're the worst
they,
bosses, and they're
they
not even
could kill
bosses.
King Alant. Yeah.
They could kill Killing Alert. One of them could like essentially like, you want to suck my soul, I'll suck your face, bitch. That's the Cthulhu guys for you. Anyway,
Yeah.
all right.
Penetrator.
Penetrator is a tier 2 boss for me.
Yeah. So tier 1 or tier 2 for me.
All right.
I
So
will settle for tier.
I'm gonna say top tier 2. Honestly.
Yeah, a little on like just borderlining on tier 1.
Yep.
Just
Yep.
purely because presentation is kick-ass.
Kick ass.
Just
Kick
and like
ass.
when you bring in Bior with you, right? Like everything, like if you've read about like Bior's lore and you've rescued him and he explains it to you and you meet him back in the Nexus and he tells you like, look, you might need some help along the way. And that character trope has sort of spun off into the other games as well.
Yep.
It is just so cool when like it is an unexpected co-op fight.
Yep.
You enter and Bior is just there, like this is
It's
me
it's that
fighting
it's
alongside
that
you.
unsolicited opinion you didn't know you wanted.
Yep.
It's just
It's
it's
just
sensational.
also it sums up Bior's storyline so well.
So
And I
well.
feel like Bior is very, very necessary character because they mention him in the opening cutscene as one of the two uh I forget Bior what's the suffix. He's one of the twins, right? Looking for his brother.
Twin fangs of something, isn't that what it's called?
Yeah, it's something like that.
Twin
I
towers or
forget.
twin
It's
fang?
been
I
a
don't
while
remember. Yeah,
since I've played.
yeah, me too actually. Yeah,
So
twin
yeah,
tower. No, yeah,
it just felt like yeah, he got his payoff.
yep,
Whatever he came for, he got it, and we were responsible in giving it to him.
yep.
So yeah, and also Penetrator. himself is a very formidable foe.
Oh
It
yes.
is doing that fight solo. I mean, I don't have to tell you.
Doing that fight solo with a fat roll is a
Oh, oh,
nightmare. It's a nightmare. Let me not like
the
you
guy can reach you across
your
the map in one
dodges have
swing.
to be inch perfect on fat roll, like inch perfect. If you
Yeah,
misstep one dodge, your fight
yeah,
is finished. It's gone
yep,
because he will skewer you. He'll make a kebab out of you, and that's the end of it.
yep. Cursed weapon,
Curse weapon.
biggest fucking problem in this entire game. Unless you use it yourself, so
Oh yeah, then it's a boon to behold.
then it's OP.
Spoken like a true demon.
All right.
All right, now we go
Now
to
we have
Phalanx. Now this is, I think, where things are going to get interesting and
solid,
juicy.
solid tier three for me.
Oh, okay. I'm going to put tier through. I'm going to put Phalanx in tier two.
Okay, go
You know
on.
why? And I'm going to put it on bottom tier two so that it sort of aligns with your thought of tier three. I think
Mm,
Phalanx is the quintessential because it's the first boss for me as a newcomer in the
mm,
entire Soulsborne
right.
experience. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I did not get the gimmick at first because I went in with a sword. I went in with nothing else. I mean, I had my flame bombs and all that shit with me. And all I could see was this whole formation of spears and shields.
Mm,
And I had no idea how to penetrate it. Nothing, none. Like, it's that moment in the game where, as a newcomer, where I'm like, I probably know the answer, but I'm not looking for it.
mm,
And that experience was like, instantly, I beat the boss on my first playthrough. But it took me 20 minutes to beat the boss because I actually spent a good 15 minutes of the boss fight dodging and figuring out
mm-hmm.
the weaknesses.
Okay.
So I literally spent like 5 minutes dodging, trying to like get it to separate essentially, which I
Yeah.
thought it was doing.
Mm,
Like it was sending out those smaller blobs of
little,
yeah,
yeah.
those little eidolons as I call them, and
Hoplites. Yeah.
and it's telling you that okay, you know what, you can kill this one. But I realized that that's not going to be an effective strategy because they just like spawn faster than I can kill them essentially.
Yep.
And that's when I realized okay, there is something else to this boss that I need to think about.
Yeah.
And at that point, I was like, okay, you know what? Let's just try everything in my arsenal. And at one instance, I tried the flame bomb, and it worked. It did
Mm,
crazy damage. And I'm like,
yeah.
okay, that's the gimmick. That's the weakness of the boss. And then I beat the boss in the next 3 minutes afterwards. But
Yeah.
I think this boss for me had that journey of discovery, which I don't think. I mean, I had it with the other bosses as well, but it was that moment which you talk about,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't think it would be. I think it's an unparalleled experience the first time out, and I
True.
think that's why I would probably put this in a tier two.
Yeah. Also, the game like constantly throws hints at you, right? Like,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
this is one thing they changed from the PS3 version. The PS3 version did not reward you enough with fire bombs or uh, pine resin. The PS5 version, they made it a point for that one flaming sword guy right outside the boss to always drop, like, have a higher drop rate for pine resin
Yep,
or
yep.
fire bombs, one of them. So, or through both the shortcuts, right? When you're coming down the towers on either side, you will see barrels, you will see fire, flaming sword enemies, draglings, and you will see enemies that throw fire bombs at you.
Yep, yep.
And it is like the biggest hint. It is so in your face.
It's so obvious, and you just
It
have a
is
tendency to
still going
miss
to
it.
take you time to figure
You
it. Yeah,
just miss it
exactly.
because as a new player, you have no idea what you're in for, essentially.
Yeah. You're just going to look at it as, oh, it's just an enemy which has a powerful weapon.
Yep, yep,
Fire
yep,
bombs are like OP,
yep,
right?
yep.
You never really think of it yourself, but when you do it and you put it together and you get that aha moment, it is something
It's just
else.
yeah, it's just the first time is always like the best in my opinion for this something like this. The
Yeah.
experience was just sensational, honestly.
Because
I
like replaying the game, right? Like replaying the game now, Phalanx is just another thing I want to get rid of.
Phalanx is so when I replayed the game and I did my mage character
Yeah.
with a royalty class, I
Yeah.
knocked the Phalanx off in like 2 minutes with like
Yeah.
fireballs and a
Just
crescent
spells.
charge thing. Yeah, just spells were enough essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
pretty
it's
easy,
real
pretty
quick
underwhelming
work.
afterwards. Yeah,
Yeah.
but for the first experience, I think it's a tier two for me.
Makes sense.
Okay, we go to Storm King
The
next.
tree. Ooh. too gimmicky for my taste, too
Mm-hmm.
long for my taste.
Mm-hmm.
I would put it on tier 3 or 4.
I would agree with you and put it in tier 4.
Yeah, somewhere like at the bottom tier 4. I
Yep.
just feel like it's, I don't know, something about boss design, not particularly my favorite.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Level design was good, presentation overall was good. I don't know, it just felt very, again, like it's one of those boss fights I need to do to get to the meat of the game.
Yep.
So I
Yep.
have to do it, you know. It it just felt very, and like the game doesn't tell you how to beat it. Of
Yep.
course, that's not a bad thing. It expects you to read the description on the storm ruler and equip it and then use the spell on it. It is not a bad mechanic. It is not a bad gimmick. I just felt like the fight goes on for way too long, even with that gimmick.
Yep.
You
100%
know?
agree. 100% agree with you. Also,
Yeah.
fuck the manta rays. They can suck an egg. I don't
Yeah.
care.
Yeah. I really don't care about those
I
enemies.
have
They're
had I
horrible.
have had nightmares about the manta rays. I kid you not. I have an inbuilt fear of glass now because I'm so tired of them just shooting glass arrows at me.
Yeah, it's weird. I don't know. I don't quite enjoy.
Traumatizing experience number one, honestly. And
Yeah.
I'm just tired of those ominous shrieks that they do in the air, and they're like they spit like glass at you, and I'm like, bro, why are you doing this to me? I have done
I
nothing to
just
you.
want to get.
Fly,
Yeah,
be
but
quiet, but fly. Fly on your own time and pace. I've done nothing to you. Let me be.
yeah.
The skeletons are enough. Let me be. But no,
I
they don't
feel like
listen.
that shortcut from the top of the tower that
Oh
takes you
yeah.
straight to
Oh, that
Adjudicator
was a
is the
godsend. That
best.
was a godsend shortcut. I bless whoever. I don't remember the guy whose video I saw to see that particular shortcut, but
But
you my friend,
wherever
you deserve a Nobel Prize, whoever you are.
ah,
All
yeah,
right.
I'd agree.
Tower Knight.
Tower Knight. I like Tower Knight.
Tower Knight
I
is a
really,
tier two boss for me.
yeah, it's a tier 2 boss for me. I really like this boss.
Yep. I think the presentation is what
It's
aces
just,
this boss to me, honestly.
I think it was the first like real challenge I faced.
Mm-hmm.
And it is the right amount of gimmick. It is the right amount of challenge. It is very good presentation. And even, and it feels like a duel,
Mm-hmm.
even though it is more of,
A David and
uh,
Goliath.
yeah, it is more of a David and Goliath, but it does feel like a duel.
Yep. Agree with you
It
on
is
that.
just, it's like, yeah, dude, he's got the upper hand and you have to get past him.
You're
That's
like the tiny
right.
rat that has to find the right way to beat the boss, essentially.
Yeah, and obviously constantly those fuckers shooting bolts at you
Bolts
from their
at you from
crossbows.
from from time eternal.
It's not even like an easy boss, right? Like,
Yeah,
because
it's not. It's not.
if you're after the crossbowman and he can shoot spells at you,
Yep.
you're
Yep.
pretty much, if you get caught in one
He
spell at
shoots
that,
those
like if you
mega
go
soul
right
arrows. Yeah, he
after
shoots those mega soul
Phalanx, you're
arrows at you,
pretty
I
much
think.
screwed.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. You go right after Phalanx, you're not go, you're going to have a very hard time.
Yeah, agree with you. So
Yeah.
even with the Tower Knight, essentially with the fat roll, the game, the challenge becomes like exponentially harder.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I do not like fat rolls.
Yeah, but I did it with a fat roll, which I feel proud about myself for. But
And
okay,
kudos to you, man. I do not have
it
the patience.
was fun. It was fun. Just
Uh,
observe the attacks, figure it out, and find the weaknesses. That's it.
yeah.
But love it. Love the boss design. Love the boss arena.
Very good. Also,
Love the
soundtrack.
soundtrack.
I
Soundtrack.
love the
Yes,
soundtrack.
the king.
Love the soundtrack.
The Tower Knight soundtrack I
Tower
think
Knight.
is among the best of the game.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
And opening cutscene, I feel like,
Oh yeah, he
it
just
doesn't
slams the shield down and he's like you shall not pass.
pass.
That moment,
Yeah. It's
beautiful.
that
Love it. All right,
sets.
and for formality's sake, we have the Vanguard Demon Kedar.
Tier 5. It's it's the most
It's just there.
uninspired. Like,
It's
it's
just
just
there.
there.
It's just a boss. It's just a big brute who's there to take you out and show
So,
you your
quick
place in the world.
question: Have you beaten the Vanguard in the tutorial?
Nope, nope, no chance.
Beat the Vanguard in the tutorial. See what happens.
Yeah, I do think as far as I know, it does open up like a unique sequence, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, it does. And you should. I'm not going to talk about it because you should experience it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But do it. It's a good change of environment, I would say. from the tutorial area,
Mm-hmm.
and it sort of foreshadows what you are about to encounter later in the game.
Okay, I probably will do that on my mage
Mm.
playthrough. But yeah, Vanguard
Yeah,
even
yeah, the mage is the way to go.
I think he just exists to show you your place in the game,
Yeah, pretty
whether
much.
you beat him or not, incidentally.
Yeah,
Yeah. All
yeah.
right. So there you have it, Kedar. This is
That is
your
our tier list.
our tier list for Demon Souls. I'm pretty happy with this one, honestly.
I am
Uh,
very happy with this one. I
and
feel like
we should do
everything
this more
fits.
often. This is kick ass. This is crazy fun.
Yeah, yeah. We should do. Let's just do all the weapons from demons.
Yeah, we should do that. We should definitely do that.
All 900 of them.
Yeah, yeah. Let's like quit our jobs and just do this for a
8
living.
hour lives.
8 hour lives. Let's just do that. All
Yeah,
right. So, uh, here you have it.
that is.
And I'm going to switch back to the podcast view over here. Just give me a sec.
Yep.
So there you have it, Kedar.
That
That
was
was our
the tier list of epic proportions.
that was our tier list of epic proportions, and I think at this point it's a good question to ask, and just a 5 minute session to close off this particular podcast because we've
Yeah,
spoken about it quite a lot.
yeah,
Uh,
quite a bit.
what do you love? What is it that makes it one of the best games that you've played ever? Which I believe it is in your case.
It is. It is. So is.
Yeah. So here you
Uh,
go. Here's the spotlight. Have your way
one.
with it.
I'm gonna wrap this up real quick. I
Yep.
feel like it does everything right, except for the overloading of gimmicks in the boss fights. Um, and just some annoying parts of the game, like those Reapers and their spellcasting enemies right before Old Hero, right? Like
Yep.
we said, the build up to it is too intense, and then the boss fight is a little flat.
Yep.
Yeah, it happens just in a few instances, but I feel like that could have been a little better handled.
Mm-hmm.
But again, no real complaints because once you mastered the game, there is not a lot that you will essentially hold against it, right?
Yep. Yep.
What I love about it is the combat. I feel like that combat is just that is the best combat I've ever done. Like though that series is just it has nailed combat for me, and I don't think I can go because games like God of War have adapted that.
Yep.
Games like
Yep.
Ghost of Tsushima have adapted that to some extent, and Jedi Fallen Order has adapted that,
Oh
and
yes.
it is on such a roll. I am glad because it doesn't matter how games adapt it. It is essentially just button assignment reliant on animations. If
Yep.
your animations are smooth and the combat is meaty and weighty and gritty, I think it's going to work flawlessly.
Hundred
So
percent.
10 on 10 for combat. It is the best I have ever experienced.
Agree with you.
Visuals are phenomenal. Soundtrack, I can listen to it like now. It's that is just my kind of music.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say it so far at the time of recording this on 10th of September 2021. This is the best game I have played on the PS5
All
so
right.
far.
All right.
Yep, those are my thoughts.
Well,
Yeah.
I will hard agree with you on this as well because to my experience, I will just go so far as to say this, right? I still don't know if this is the best game I've played in year one PlayStation, honestly, because I think I have a lot of games that I would put in line with that. But
Mhm.
if you have to ask me, I could not have asked for a better Soulsborne experience than this to start with.
That is good to know.
To start
Yeah,
with, I think if I had to have the have had the privilege of having a console in 2009 and having played it in that time, I would have probably been like, wow, this game is something special. And like they
yeah,
say, better late than never. That's the experience for me. uh, 10 on 10 game for me, honestly. With all its imperfections, minute as they might be,
yeah.
this game wouldn't be complete without those imperfections, honestly. And I
True.
really feel like this game is the best game I could have started with on this particular generation of consoles. 100% agree on that.
Yeah,
So I love it. I think it has created in me a newfound fondness for Soulsborne, which I did not
yes.
ever expect I would have in me, honestly speaking. And like you, I am now looking forward to Elden Ring, unlike memeing Elden Ring, which I think is a testament to the game and the genre in itself.
Yeah,
And that's saying something, because if a game's able to do that for
that
a
is
genre,
saying.
then it clearly is a top of the echelon kind of a line.
Oh yeah. This you can just place your bets on From Software pulling out something new and original out of the park. It's just they have constantly innovated, and I have never seen them miss the mark. It
Yep.
is it is
Yep.
just like the mind of Miyazaki. Like that should be a true crime documentary. Just
Or a no clip documentary.
or a no clip documentary.
Yeah, shout out to no
And
clip
that
guy.
guy is so secretive. He just never does interviews. Is
He's
It's
just
awesome.
he's just there. You just know he's there, and
He's
he
just
does his thing.
he's just doing his thing.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
All
All
right.
right.
I think that was a good 1 hour and 1.5 hours of conversation on Demon Souls. Uh, Testament to the game itself, obviously. I think we both have loved it, and we both cannot wait to see what else From Software
Yeah,
has in line for
is
us, in
going to
store for
pull
us.
out of their hat now.
Come January, I think
Yeah.
we're both going to be on the consoles
Give
once
us
again
the 60 FPS patch for
with
Bloodborne.
60 FPS patch for Bloodborne, please. Hashtag. Thank you very much. Uh, but until then, we will look forward to a lot of other games to play coming soon, which we will also talk about in this In Focus series. I think
Yeah.
on the agenda soon will probably be Deathloop, as far as I'm aware. So stay
Yes.
tuned for that. That's going to be a roll. That's going to be a roller coaster. I'm
That's
sure
gonna be
about
a
it. Good or
whenever we
bad, we
get.
never know, but it's probably going to be there on the top of the list. So look forward to that one. Uh,
Oh, it's gonna be good.
it's going to be a riot. I am really
It's
hyped for Deathloop.
arcane.
It's Arcane Studios. It's
Yeah.
Dishonored, guys. It's Dishonored Tech. So look forward to that one. Uh, Probably towards
Yep.
the end of September is when we should see that one coming up. But until then, we have a lot of other things in store for you. And we will see you quite
Yeah.
soon. Until then,
Soon.
uh,
Bye
thank you so
bye.
much. Thank you for joining us.
Yep.
Subscribe, follow us if you like our content. And we will see you very shortly thereafter. Adios.